So let's talk about what you're going to need in order to pass this test. I believe that you cannot probably pass this developer test if all you do is watch videos. There's just no way that I can create the kind of content that's going to get you to pass this test without actually doing it yourself. So, absolutely recommend that you have some type of code editor, whether you're using Visual Studio Code with the Azure plugin for that, or Visual Studio 2017 Community Edition, absolutely free. Either one of those is going to get you a basis for development with Microsoft Azure. Now, Microsoft does have this web page for developer tools. So there'll be a link attached to this video for Azure Developer Tools, or you can look at azure.microsoft.com and US tools. Now, they are starting off by recommending the Visual Studio Code Editor, which is an open source code editor, has an ARM extension that you can get in to work with ARM and Microsoft Azure. If you're going to use the Visual Studio 2017, I recommend getting the Azure SDK, and we can see that the .NET SDK is available for Visual Studio. You can also do it through the normal NuGet way. All other different languages, if you are primarily a Python or PHP or Java developer, we also have SDKs for those languages as well. So definitely get yourself, at a minimum, get yourself Visual Studio, get yourself the SDK, and prepare to start coding. Okay, when it comes to all these aspects, you should have at least an idea of the steps required in order to create the storage account, create the container, how blobs are created, the security, how security is handled through these development tools. Now, command line tools is more of an infrastructure. There's big emphasis on the infrastructure exams, the AZ100 series. PowerShell and command line interface, there are local versions of that. I don't see this appearing as much on developer tests, but I do know that developers do like to automate things, do like to write scripts. It should be part of your repertoire of being able to create a CLI command line script that can automate some type of deployment, pushing your code, etc. So writing these little batch files is definitely a good part of any development process. Azure Storage Explorer. Now, this is a relatively new tool. It's in preview mode right now. But if you're going to do anything with Microsoft Azure Storage, definitely worth getting this client-side tool. It's a software you can download on your Windows, Mac, or Linux that you can connect into your Azure storage accounts, and you can actually browse the data inside of the storage accounts. And so you don't have to go to the portal, and some of the portal tools are a bit limited. You can create and manage blobs, tables, queues, and generate even your secure keys from there. So using any type of development that you want to do, having a storage explorer that you can see the files being created, what's the contents of the files, work with them easily. Incidentally, this might make a good project as well. If you're looking for something to do to learn Microsoft Azure development, create your own storage explorer. That would be a really interesting project. Creating a user interface, connecting into Microsoft Azure using particular security settings, and then being able to connect to storage accounts, query them, show the contents, perform various tasks on them. So Microsoft provides it, but it's also a good learning tool if you wanted to get into creating it. Visual Studio, since it's cross-platform nowadays, it's not only a Windows thing, so if you are a Mac learner, there's a Visual Studio Mac Edition. Docker, we're going to talk about containers in this course, and so basically there are Docker tools for Visual Studio, other than the command line tools that you can download for Docker. We don't talk much about Service Fabric. That seems to be not covered as much in the tests. Now, as a developer, we're going to live and die by code. The GitHub, Microsoft's official GitHub called Azure-Samples, contains hundreds of repositories. And so if we just look at it natively, there's 1,045 repositories. If we filter it just on C# code, we can see over 400 repositories written in C#. And so pretty much anything that you want to do that you can basically find some sample code in here that you can start with. So as developers, obviously looking at how it's implemented when we're trying to do it ourselves is always a good a good idea. So come check out the Azure Samples GitHub account to find sample code that does something similar to what you want to do, and then you can take that and modify it. Microsoft has an official site called Azure Citadel. It's based out of the Microsoft UK office. It appears that they're in some type of renovation right now. It's currently being migrated to a new platform. And looking around this site, I do like it, but it is kind of hard to find things right now. So really, we're trying to find development-related tools, and there are some mentions of APIs and RESTful APIs and things like that. Keep an eye on this. I don't think this is going to be a great tool for you for a development point of view, but come back here in a couple months and see what they've got in terms of assignments and things that you can follow along with in terms of learning how to do Azure. The same can be true of the self-paced labs. Microsoft has an official website that has hands-on labs, and we'll go into self-paced labs. And there are currently 201 self-paced labs, and my understanding is Microsoft is adding to this over time. But probably the problem is that if we filter on developer-focused labs, like developer, application developer, we're getting down into 28 or so developer-focused labs. And a lot of these are going to be like Office 365. There's some Office 365 and then blockchain. So not necessarily directly related to this test, but like there are going to be things about creating a virtual machine scale set and how to deploy a highly available app. Well, that would be for an hour of your time to go through, create a VMSS, and deploy an app. Certainly, that's all relevant to what you're learning within this exam. So go check out the self-paced labs. I will set your expectation, though, that it isn't as great as it probably will be when Microsoft's finished with this. There's only 28 labs related to developers, and a good number of those are Office 365. Finally, Microsoft has their Learn website, which is microsoft.com/learn, I believe. And if we were to look at developer-related Learn options, there are 60 results. Now, these are usually smaller bits of code, smaller lessons. They call micro-learning, 45 minutes here, an hour there. So if you go through here and you want to learn a little bit more about virtual machines or functions or serverless applications, you can certainly find some interesting lessons. Now, there's a lot of reading in here, less so than this video course that you're enrolled in, less videos. So be prepared to just go through, read through this. Some of this is quite, maybe it's not as in depth as you would like, but it's a good piece of official Microsoft learning that you can go through to get a sense of the overview of something like this in case of serverless logic functions. Okay, so this is basically the tools that are required. You do need Visual Studio, you need SDK. Go to GitHub, have this bookmark somewhere, the Azure Samples site. You will find other code in here that can help you. Some of this other stuff is not required and may not be super helpful at this stage, but at some point it will be. And I believe the more sources that you have for learning, the better for you. Don't obviously rely on a single source. Go through as much as content as you can, and you're part of this course, and so this is a great start for you. So thanks so much for being part of this, and go get yourself Visual Studio if you don't have it, and let's keep going.